All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mark Satin with Enrollment Rx, and welcome to week 3 of our summer school virtual Building on the Best 2023. Today's session is titled The Rise of Appointment Manager. I am joined by 3 of our terrific implementation team members, Connor O'Farrell, Katie Scanlon, and Mark Farrell. And today's conversation, we are going to walk through all of the ins and outs of Appointment Manager, which is one of our newest features and modules that we offer within our Enrollment Rx product line. Before we get into the rise of Appointment Manager, this is now week 3. For those of you that are joining for the first time or have joined since the beginning of the month, just do a quick recap. We've completed multiple sessions so far, all of which have been recorded and are available on the RAD Navigator. This week, we have 3 terrific sessions. Obviously, today's session is the Rise of Appointment Manager. We also, as part of this week, we have a terrific session tomorrow. Hopefully, you're able to join. Tomorrow's session is with the Ohio University Heritage College of Medicine. That session, Mark Farrell, if you want to just go to the next slide, is going to be centered around how they are utilizing and leveraging Form Builder Rx and student documents. They are doing a fantastic job extending kind of the life cycle of their engagement within candidates up to students and even faculty to some degree. And so tomorrow's session is going to be centered around how they're collecting and managing documents that the candidate, or in this case, the student, is managing themselves within a digital experience. So please, tomorrow's session is 11 a.m. Central Time. And then on Thursday, we have a terrific session, which is centered around preparing your next application cycle. Our team has put together multiple different talking points, templates to really help focus on, as even though right now seasonally, summer, you're preparing for your fall, what are the items and steps and initiatives that you should take to make sure that your application cycle is ready to go? This includes obviously the application, it includes imports, it includes looking at your staff and assignment manager, your review process. So it's going to be a really in-depth session at 11 a.m. again, Central Time on the 22nd. So again, welcome to week 3 of our summer school. We are really excited to talk with you today about Appointment Manager. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Farrell.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Farrell, and on behalf of Katie and Connor and the other Mark, I want to welcome you to the rise of the Appointment Manager. Appointment Manager is one of the latest products from Enrollment Rx, and it's part of our Events Rx platform. And just like other Enrollment Rx products, Appointment Manager interacts with native Salesforce components and our own managed package components. And the goal is to allow you as an admin the flexibility to create and manage one-on-one appointments for any user group that you've set up. And notice I said user group. This is not just for admissions. Now, in our audience today, I'm sure some of you have seen the previous demos that we've had on Appointment Manager, or you've maybe seen the information that we have already on the RAD Navigator. And some of you are probably seeing this for the very first time. Now, at the end of the session, if we are successful, both audience types will be able to take away something from this session. Now, maybe you're just joining to see if this is something that could benefit you or your current process that you have, or maybe think about ways to incorporate this into a new process. Or maybe you've already decided that this is something you want to use, but you just want a little bit more understanding of what's under the hood. Well, either way, hopefully we have you covered today. So what are we going to cover today? Well, first, I have a few slides on what is Appointment Manager and why it is important. And then Katie is going to walk us through a use case. And during her portion, she'll focus on the setup of different users, the configuration of the internal calendar, and mostly the admin and the internal facing side. After that, Connor is going to cover another use case, and she'll focus on the public facing calendar side of it and the registration process, mostly things that focus on the external side. And then finally, we'll answer any questions that you have. We have the chat open, so if you want to post questions while we're talking, please feel free to do so. And at the end, if there's questions that we haven't gotten to, or if something else comes up, we will do a Q&A before we wrap up. All right, so with that, let's get started. Okay. So the title of this session is The Rise of the Appointment Manager. But before our appointment manager can rise, let's talk a little bit about why we created it in the first place and why it's important. So when we set out to build Appointment Manager, we wanted to ensure a few things. One, we wanted to give admins the ability to create appointments and all the other features that we're going to show you today. Two, we wanted to ensure that the Appointment Manager fits into our existing products, meaning the navigation, the flow, the screens that you're going to use, all of this should be somewhat familiar to you already. Of course, the new Appointment Manager interface is brand new, but the way it's laid out, the underlying pages, the tabs, all of that stuff should be something that you'd feel comfortable playing with because it looks familiar to you. And then we also want to make sure that what we're building here is a single source of truth. And what does that mean? So when you're trying to set up calendars with all these different users, you want to make sure that everything is in sync, right? So what we want to do is have one place where all of these appointments, and we'll talk about all the different types of appointments throughout this session, are in one place. So not only as an admin, but anybody can make sure that all of their calendars are lined up, people aren't double booked, and it just makes the use of everything streamlined. And then, excuse me. Now, I mentioned the other calendars. So what does that look like? So inside Salesforce, you'll have regular Salesforce events. We'll have the appointments and availability that we set up through Appointment Manager. But we'll also show you two integrations that we have with Google Calendars and Outlook. So you're able to sync up multiple calendars. So it's not just having to worry about managing your appointments for Appointment Manager here, and then your other invites in another kind of system. This way you'll be able to control your availability in one place. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because we've had a lot of interest, a lot of feedback from internal and from our clients about having the ability to create this kind of one-on-one appointment. With campus campaigns that we use in events, that's a one-to-many relationship, right? You have your campus welcome day, you have 500 people register, everybody comes, they register for it, they get an email confirmation, and that's great, right? And then with visits and visit series, which are also in Events Rx, we do a one-to-many as well. But in some of those visit series, we have smaller groups, right? Maybe you have it only set to 5 people, or maybe you even have it set to 1, and you're trying to do a kind of one-on-one, but you're managing it a little, it's not as intuitive as maybe you'd want it. Well, with Appointment Manager now, you basically have the ability to create this one-on-one appointment for any population that you have that is a user group in Salesforce. So again, this isn't just for admissions, scheduling admissions appointments to do admissions applications, right? If you have academic advising, set up in Salesforce, they can set up academic advising appointments. If you have financial aid officers set up in Salesforce, they can set up financial aid appointments to review award letters or anything like that. If you have student support and you want to set up availability for students to set up appointments for just help with the student support staff. I mean, this is exactly what Appointment Manager is giving you the ability to do. Now, I mentioned Appointment Manager is part of Events Rx, but in this diagram here, we have Appointment Manager in the middle. Now, Appointment Manager interacts with all of these other products that you see here surrounding it. So what do we need for Appointment Manager to work? Well, obviously you need Events Rx, and in the 2023 released one, Events Rx has the functionality. Then we have DXP. So if you're not familiar with DXP, DXP is our digital experience. It's already incorporated in Form Builder. So we're going to use DXP 2023 release 1 as well. And we're also going to use Lightning Communities. And then on top of that, there's a user license as well for Appointment Manager. So how do these all kind of play together? Well, with DXP, we're using that to build the forward-facing site page. So we're going to use DXP components for the calendar and other widgets on that page. For the Lightning Communities, we're actually going to create a Lightning community to house the calendar itself, and we'll use Lightning components on the page and behind the scenes. And by now, you should know that Form Builder is everywhere, so no surprise that we have a spot for it here. And we're going to use Form Builder to build the registration page. So just like you use Form Builder to build event registration pages now, you can use Form Builder now to create your appointment registration pages. And just like in Form Builder, you'll be able to use to create all your different fields of information, update your render criteria, required fields, update the buttons to, update fields, things like that. So all the full bells and whistles for Form Builder are at your disposal there. And all of this works together to show you what we're going to show you today with the Appointment Manager. So how does it work? Don't worry, I'm not going to go through this node by node, and there's not going to be a test at the end. In Appointment Manager, we basically have two modules. So the first one here is really just the admin module or the front-end user module. And this flow just kind of represents all of the things that we've thought of that would be important for this process. So I show this only to illustrate kind of that point, is that when you set up your users, you want to make sure, obviously, having the appointment slots, open slots is necessary. But how about after they register? You probably want to send them an email, right, to confirm their registration. Maybe you want different confirmation emails depending on what appointment they're registering for. And then what about rescheduling, right? Sure, the student might reschedule, but what happens when somebody calls in sick or is out of the office unexpectedly, right? You want to have the ability to manage and reschedule appointments on somebody else's behalf so that the student doesn't suffer if you have somebody else available that could still keep that slot, right? So you want to be able to have all of this kind of functionality to be able to support this. And then when you're done with the appointment, right, you have the appointment, you might want to add some notes and then check it off, change a status, do something so that you know that now this appointment is complete, right? So it's a full kind of circle. And Katie and Connor are going to show you this live. I'm just kind of teeing it up for you here. So then this right here is the student flow. Now with the student side, which Connor is going to show you a little bit later, here we'll create a public-facing calendar, and students will be able to search and filter by a time, a date, a person, whoever they want to book through. They'll receive that confirmation email. They'll be able to reschedule if they need to. And then same when the meeting's over, the notes, close it out, and you'll be able to track everything. Now, I'm going to show you just a couple of screenshots of both sides because Connor and Katie are going to do this live and show you everything in way more detail. So, but what I wanted to call out here are just a couple of things. So this is internally, this is the calendar. This is going to be a bird's eye view of all of the appointments. So again, I don't want you to focus on the words. I know it's a little bit blurry, but you'll notice just the different colors, right? And if you look to the top right corner, you'll see the colors kind of correlate with the different calendars. So here's where I just wanted to show all the different calendars that would be synced up, would be in a nice display for you to see. You have different color codings based off availability versus what is booked, which is open. You'll notice there's some searching or there's some mode and topics along the right-hand side, right? You'll be able to categorize these appointments so that people can filter by a type or an event or a topic or something like that. So it's all great things that are going to be at your fingertips to be able to manage as an admin. And then down here on this slide, this is more the student facing side. So this is what the external facing calendar kind of looks like. And there you'll see, across the top, it looks very similar to the events calendar that we have now. Across the top, you'll have all the different search functionality. You'll be able to do your topics or your types or your modes, whatever you set up as your criteria to doing your filters in your search. And then people will be able to see the availability, listed below. And then when they click on one of them, if you look at the pop-up on the right, guess what that is? That's your form builder registration page. Looks very familiar to any other, if you have RFI forms or the event registration page for regular campaigns or visits. Again, all very familiar to you, and using the power of form builder at the end. So again, I don't want to go into really a lot more of this. I'd rather you see it kind of firsthand. So enough from me. And I'm going to pass it over to Kate now, who's going to walk through more the admin side, talk about some of the permissions needed to start getting things set up, and then show you how the admin side of the appointment manager works. So with that, I will let Katie take it away.
Thanks, Mark. If you want to move on to the next slide, Mark. So before I go into detail about the internal staff calendar, like Mark said, I did want to point out the permissions needed to access the internal calendar, as well as those needed to access the external facing calendar. So you can see those listed here. So we have the appointment manager license, which is required, as Mark has already mentioned. There is a permission on the user record for staff members called Events Rx Appointment User, which you can see in the image. So just a simple checkbox field. There are permission sets needed for both staff users, so the internal staff users, as well as the site guest users, which is for the external calendar. So those permission sets are listed there as well. There's also an enabled custom permission needed for staff users. So I did just want to briefly call those out. So now that we have the permissions in place, we can start learning more about the staff calendar. So Mark, if you want to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So the internal staff calendar, this is the centralized place in Salesforce where your end users, so your staff users, will be maintaining their schedules and their availabilities. So this is where they can create their available appointments, see their scheduled appointments. If integration is in place, they can also see Google or Outlook appointments as well. To view the staff calendar, users with access will navigate to the Appointment Calendar DXP tab, which we are going to learn about on the next slide. So what you are looking at now is the interface of the internal staff calendar. And when you or your staff users go to the Appointment Manager DXP tab, this is what your users will be seeing. So you can see the appointments, like Mark had briefly mentioned, they're color-coded with the display options on the right-hand side. We have light green slots showing available appointments, dark green slots indicating that someone has registered for one of those appointments. If you are using your Salesforce calendar, you also see Salesforce events listed, which are shown there in light blue. And I did mention that integration is possible with Google and Outlook. So if we go to the next slide, Mark. So, we know that many clients use Google calendars or Outlook calendars to manage their schedules. So with Appointment Manager, integration is available for both of those. And it allows Salesforce to be kind of that single source of truth for all of your appointments. So in the image on the slide, you can see that the Google events are highlighted in yellow. With integrating those, or when integrating those, there are custom settings which need to be checked, which you can see in the image. So sync event to Google, sync event to Outlook. So we're not going to be going into, so the custom settings are required and there's additional configuration steps. I'm not going to go into those specific steps today, but all of that information is available on the RAD Navigator. But it is great that we do have integration for those external calendars in place. So now let's take a look at what we could do in the internal calendar. So there are specific functions that you can do in the internal calendar interface. So the three main functions are creating availabilities. So these are time slots for your staff showing they have available appointments, and those then appear on the external calendar, allowing people to register for an appointment with your staff members. The next function is inviting contacts. So with a simple button click, you can send an email directly to an existing contact, inviting them to register for an appointment. The last item listed is the ability to mark an appointment as complete. So that is a button that's auto-enabled right before appointment begins, where it allows you to mark an appointment as complete. You can write notes about the appointment and go from there. So we'll dive a little bit more deeply into each of these functions. So on the next slide, we'll learn about creating availabilities. So when you're creating recurring availabilities, staff members have the option to set the appointment time and length. They also can set the time in between appointments. They can select topics, which are customizable based on your use case for using Appointment Manager. Once these are created, again, these available appointments appear on the external facing calendar, and I will be demonstrating that here in just a moment. So let's talk a little bit more on the next slide about inviting a contact. So in the image, you can see the invite contact button. So this allows you to send an email invitation directly to an existing contact record. You select what email template you would like to use, and this will include a link to the external facing appointment calendar. The link you're using in the email template can be filtered so that it's only showing the specific user's availability, or it could be filtered based on the topics of the available appointments or a specific date range as examples. So the last function is, so the appointment has taken place. Hopefully the appointment went well. You have the ability to then mark the appointment as completed, which you can see in the image. You can complete the appointment. And this is also where you can add your meeting notes as well. So at this time, I am going to demonstrate a few of the things I just discussed. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can see my staff calendar. So let's get oriented as to what we're looking at. So this is the backend calendar in Salesforce. I have navigated to the Appointment Calendar DXP tab, and you can see the available appointments in the middle here. And again, these are color-coded. You can see our display options and our filters on the side, which I'll go into more detail in just a moment. The buttons across the top, we're able to navigate to other months using these arrows. We can refresh the calendar as needed using this button here. We can change the view. So right now we're looking at the month view, but I can change it so that I'm seeing maybe just the week view. So I just want to see my appointments this week. I can select a day. So if I just want to see today's appointments, that's an option as well. And then I'll go back to the month option. I mentioned the invite contact and new availability buttons, which I'm going to go over here in just a moment. This button here, this allows you to toggle the display off and on. So if you want to see a full screen view of your calendar. So I had mentioned these are color coded, so we have our appointments. So in this example, we don't have Google or Outlook integrated, so we're not seeing any of those appointments, but we are seeing Salesforce events in the light blue. If I want to toggle that off so that I'm only seeing my available or my registered selected appointments, I can uncheck that box. So now I'm only seeing these. There are a few other filter options that Mark kind of briefly touched on. So we can select different modes. So if I want to see only my available appointments that are in person, I can select that, for example. I can filter based on topic. So if I only want to see my academic advising appointments, I can select that and it would filter these appointments accordingly. one thing I do want to point out is that I am logged in as Debbie Director. So as Debbie Director, I'm only seeing my available appointments, right? So with this option, so here we have our staff user filter. So there is an added permission that allows staff to view and access other users' calendars. So again, that's an added permission that we haven't covered yet, but that would be appropriate for someone who's maybe at a manager level or director level, like Debbie Director. I need to be able to see my staff calendars. Or in a case where maybe somebody's out of the office, they're going to be out of the office, so another staff member needs to be able to access their availabilities, maybe register someone for them, and so on. So with this, I can see other users. So if I want to see Matt Palmer's calendar as an example, I can see his availabilities. I'm able to register existing contacts for his appointments, and I'm also able to edit his availabilities. I am not able to create new availabilities on Matt's behalf. I can only create availabilities for my own user, but it is great that you can, access the calendars for other staff members. So if I exit out of Matt's calendar, so I'm back in Debbie's calendar. So I'm going to go over the different functions that I briefly touched on. So the first one is creating new availabilities. So I click the new availabilities button, and so this is what I'm seeing. So I have the availability or the ability to select the start dates and the end dates for the recurring appointments. So in this scenario, let's say for next week, I want to create a few availabilities. So I'm going to select next week, and I'm going to say that from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. Oops. If I can select 5 p.m. So 12 to 5, I want to select appointments or create appointments that are 30 minutes in length. So here I'm selecting the appointment length, and I want to also select the time in between appointments, so I have a break in between those availabilities. So I want to do 30-minute appointments with 30 minutes in between during this time frame. And here I can select the days of the week. So let's say that I only want to select or create these availabilities for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the topics for these, I want to do academic advising. So I'm able to select my topic here. Again, this is customizable based on your use case. Here's also where I can select the mode. So if I want to select web or in person, this is where I do that. So I want these advising appointments to be in person. Here in this field is where I select my form builder registration page that Mark had talked about. So I'm going to select my academic advising appointments. So I do want to point out that in this example, we have registration pages based on topics, but again, these are customizable as well. So you could have a different registration page per user. You could have different registration pages based on the mode that the appointment's going to be taking place in. So again, it doesn't have to be based on topic. So I'm going to select my academic advising appointments. This field, the web conference field, that is where you can add, if this was a web meeting, I could add a Zoom link, for example, here. This field, appointment confirmation, this is where I'm selecting the confirmation email that I've previously set up. So I'm going to select my appointment registration confirmation. I can also schedule or select my reschedule email template. I can add optionally instructions that will appear on the registration page. And down at the bottom, this is where I can set up my appointment reminders. So this feature is unique to Appointment Manager, and it's a great feature in that you can set up reminders when you're creating the availabilities. You can set up the reminders here and customize those. So we can select the email template that we want to use. So I can select my appointment reminder email. And here I can select how many minutes, days, or hours before the appointment that I want to send reminders for. So we will send a reminder, we'll do 2 days before the appointment, and then we'll send a second reminder. We'll do that 1 hour before the appointment. And I can keep adding these reminders if I wanted to, include more. But again, it is nice because you can customize this and set it up right when you're creating the availability. So now that I have everything set up, I can go ahead and save this. So now you can see that for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, I've set up new availabilities. So they're now showing on the staff calendar. It's important to know or remember that these appointments are now also on the external facing calendar. So I can have, prospective students or, students, whatever my use case, I can have them now registering to meet with me for these appointments. And Connor is going to be demonstrating that here in just a few moments. I do want to point out also with the new availabilities that I created, if I click on one of those, I have a few different options here. So one, I can register an existing contact for my appointment. So it's very easy to do. So if someone calls and says they want to meet with me and they know the date and time already, I can just go ahead and get them registered. I have the option to edit this specific slot, or I have the ability to edit all recurring slots. So all of those recurring availabilities I just created, I can edit all of those at one time. I also have the ability to delete a specific time slot. Okay, so now we've created our availability, so we know how to do that. The other function I had mentioned was inviting contacts. Again, that's this button here. So if I click on that, this is where I can select an existing contact. I can start typing in their name and find them. I can select my email template. And then with a click of a button, I can send that email to them, inviting them to schedule that appointment. And again, that link can be filtered to a specific date range. It can be filtered to only show my appointments, no other staff users' appointments, and so on. And then the final function that I wanted to show was marking the appointment as complete. So if I go to one of my dark green appointments, so this is one that was registered, and this is one that's already taken place. So if I click on that, so I double clicked, you can see that I can now click this complete appointment button, and I can add my meeting notes to kind of track, how the meeting went, what was discussed, and then I can complete the appointment. I also have the ability here to reschedule or cancel an appointment. If I click on this, that can generate an email to the student to reschedule an appointment as well, if it had not already taken place. So those are the three main functions. And again, I just want to point out, I think the main takeaways are just the ease of use and the ability for staff to maintain their own calendars is a great feature. And I think at this time, Connor is going to show us the external facing calendar.
Perfect. Thanks, Katie and Mark. Go ahead and take over our screen share here. So first thing I'm going to do is walk us through just some of these first initial setup steps for your forward-facing calendar that your constituents will use to go through that registration process. I just have one slide here, and then I'm going to jump right back into a live demo. So we will go through these step by step here, as well as in our demo environment, before we jump to the forward-facing calendar and see the final result of what these steps will produce for you. So to start, it really is as simple as these 4 steps, and several of these steps may look very familiar, especially to our current clients. So step 1 would be the newer step, and that is creating a new digital experience. So you go to the setup menu and you create a new digital experience. And this is where you'll start with creating an experience via a pre-built template that comes with the digital experience setup. In this case, for the student calendar, you are going to use the Build Your Own Aura template. The next step will be to jump to Form Builder and go ahead and set up a new Form Builder environment as a community. Again, something I think a lot of our clients are familiar with. And that form builder environment will be tied then to the digital experience that you just created. Step 3, once you have that form builder environment built and activated, will be to build one or more appointment registration forms. So as Katie showed in the selection process for setting up a new availability or an availability set, you have the selection of a drop-down menu of any number of forms that you have set up within Form Builder. And finally, before that front-facing calendar is ready to be used, you do go back to the setup section of Salesforce and create your digital experience page using the new digital experience builder that Salesforce has released for use with this new feature. There you will add the component that we have built out as a part of our DXP package for the DXP student calendar. And for those who weren't able to join our DXP session a couple of weeks ago, highly recommend watching that as we go into a little bit more detail about what DXP is. It does stand for digital experience, and how then those components interact with Lightning Pages. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to cover one slide here, and now we're going to move right back into our demo. Let me switch my screens. And so now we are looking at our setup menu within Salesforce. And so again, these are just sort of first time setup steps that need to be completed in order for you to have this live calendar, front-facing calendar for folks to be able to see those availabilities that your staff members are setting up. So first things first, once you go to the setup menu, you can use the quick find and start typing in sites. Now, many of you may be familiar with using this sites link under the sites and domains, but because we are creating a digital experience, we're actually going to use this all sites under digital experiences within the menu. I'm going to click on all sites. And since this is our demo org, you'll see we have many digital experiences set up here. We do already have our appointment calendar digital experience set up, but if we did not, you would click this new button to go ahead and start creating a brand new experience. I'm going to select this just to show you that the very first screen when you click that is to start with that template. And so again, this form builder for Lightning template is a part of our DXP package, covered more in that other webinar I mentioned. But for this particular use case, we're going to scroll down and you would select this build your own or a template. You'll go through some very basic getting started steps before that is set up. I'm going to go ahead and click back to setup and come back just to show you one more thing here. So once you get that set up, you'll have this URL that you will want to copy so that when you jump to Form Builder, you have it ready to plug into your new environment. I'm also going to come back at the end of this setup process to this builder link that we have here. And this is a new tool that Salesforce has provided for these Lightning digital experiences so that we can add those DXP components to a Lightning page. So more on that in just a few minutes. But once you've got your digital experience set up for appointment calendar, you then want to navigate to Form Builder. So I'm going to jump to my next tab here where I already have Form Builder open. And here, again, we can see that we have already created our new environment. But if you had not, you would go to Create New Environment. You would select the community environment type and then proceed to fill in the rest of the details. Of course, this is where you would plug in that site URL for the digital experience that you created. Filling out the rest of these details and then clicking Save will then give you a new environment, and we have named ours Appointment Calendar. This is where I think things get very familiar for our clients. So once you've jumped into your appointment calendar environment, we can scroll down and we see many of the same tabs that we usually see in Form Builder. The template builder is, in fact, is relied on for our public-facing calendar, as well as the registration pages as well. So if you have already been using Form Builder and you already have custom templates created with your branding, the great news is that Appointment Calendar can utilize those right off the bat. So it's a big step that you've already taken then to make sure that this next new public-facing page has that same branding and visualization that all of your other pages do with us. So jumping into Page Builder, as these other tabs do not apply in this particular case with this feature. We're at Page Builder and scrolling down, now we see that list of different registration pages that Katie had to choose from when setting up her availability. And as she mentioned, we have chosen within our demo org to create different pages based on the type or topic of the appointment, but you could create these, based on a number of different parameters. So perhaps, as Katie mentioned, you create a different form for each individual who might have an appointment scheduled for them. And then when they go to create their availabilities, they would select their registration form for their availability. You may have different registration forms for in-person versus online or by phone. So however you'd like to set that up, the key thing here is that you can set these forms up so that they can be reused over and over again. And furthermore, using Form Builder, of course, gives you extreme configuration flexibility due to all of the different sort of read-only, render, and required criteria and customization that you can put on each page. So if you were to create a new page, you would select Create New Page, and this is where we do have a new appointment registration page type that actually comes out of the box sort of, with a starting point for you. So you're not creating this from scratch. I'm going to jump to my next tab where I actually have our academic advising registration page open within Page Builder, just to show you exactly what that looks like when it comes out of the box. So a lot of this already set up for you, which is really great. You see right away on this page, very familiar, our data sets and our sections on our page with forms. We do have two sections here for old appointment information and appointment information. And you'll see that in action as we go and actually demo the registration and the rescheduling process, which is another unique feature specifically for Appointment Manager, where your constituents or students or whomever is registering for the appointment will also have the ability to self-reschedule if for some reason they can't make the originally scheduled time. Scrolling down this page just a little, we then get to our personal information section. Now, again, this is just the basic out-of-the-box form that comes when you use that pre-built page and select that first. But using your contact data set, you could, of course, add any other additional fields to this. You could render them based on certain information provided on the form, make them required, et cetera. So all of those wonderful customizations that you are able to do with your event registration forms if you're using Form Builder for that, or your portal, your application, et cetera, anything you're using Form Builder for today. So we are really trying, as we started saying, last year, to use Form Builder everywhere and help use this, very high power tool across all of our products. All right, so with that, then the very last step, as I said, we're going to go back to our setup tab, and we're going to look at our builder for building this lightning page. I'm jumping back to my first tab here, back to our digital experiences, and I'm going to select this builder link next to my appointment calendar. Now you'll see this is already built out. Great. And right here, we're seeing actually the back end of this appointment calendar. And so as I hover over it, you can see that this is actually a lightning page. If for folks who have started using these for their portal, this may look familiar, but this may be brand new to a lot of folks. So once again, we do have several other sessions we've hosted throughout our VBOB Building on the Best Summer School this month. And I highly recommend, if this is very new to you, to check in on some of those as well. But this DXP student calendar is in fact just a component that gets dragged and dropped onto this page. And it's as easy as that. So if this component was not here, you'd simply go up to the components, you click on the components tab, and you would scroll down to find under custom components, the DXP student calendar component. You would click and drag it onto the page, and then it simply pops up just like this. You'll publish your page, and that's as little as it takes to get the page going. So now I'm going to jump to one more tab, and we're going to see this live front-facing calendar. So here we go. This is the live front-facing calendar. Looks very similar to the builder. I think that's a big plus of this new builder tool that Salesforce has offered, that you really do see a lot of what your constituents will see on the front end. You may notice I did jump into an incognito window because I'm logged into Salesforce in my browser. In order to navigate to this public site, you'll just want to either open it in a new browser or in this window, but your students or constituents would not necessarily need to do this. And right away, we're looking at a page that may look very familiar, especially if you've already assigned a template that you're currently using. So that would be the header, footer, look, and feel of this page. Moving to the main section with our calendar, we see, our calendar with all of our availabilities, and we see multiple staff members' availabilities on this calendar. So unlike the back end where you'll only see your own, unless you filter to a different staff member, if you have that permission, your front-facing users will see all of the availabilities. Now, that being said, there are multiple filters at the top of this calendar that can make it easier for individuals to go ahead and find maybe the topic, the type of appointment they're looking for, or the individual staff member that they know they want to schedule with. Similarly, we have navigation buttons for the calendar, so we can move ahead a month and see what's available. Once I navigate away from the today, this button becomes clickable, and I can select it to jump right back to where we currently are in the calendar. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the availabilities that Katie just set up for us and what that looks like when we want to register for it. So I'm going to scroll down, and Katie set up a few appointments next week as Debbie Director. So let's go ahead and look at a Debbie Director appointment. I would like to go ahead and schedule. And so we see, lots of appointments here, and maybe I don't want to worry so much about seeing all of those. Let's filter by topic. So I would like to do an academic advising. And in fact, I know I want to do it with Debbie. And so now when I scroll down, that's much better. It makes it so much easier to find what I'm looking for. And so I'm going to select this 1 o'clock appointment with Debbie. Now we see that form builder registration page in action. So here's the first section, that appointment information section in read only, confirming the details of the selected availability. I would then go through, complete this form, and I can add questions for Debbie. So if I know a few things that I want to talk about during this session, I will go ahead and type those out here. I click submit registration. Of course, Debbie sees this information, and she sees that a new appointment has been scheduled on her calendar. But similarly, I receive a confirmation email. So just for the sake of time and presentation, I have a confirmation email open from a previous appointment I scheduled. I'm going to close out of this and we'll just take a quick look at that. So here is our confirmation email. And as you can see, it looks very similar to the confirmation emails that you may be familiar with from Events Rx. So you can merge in personal information about the individual, anything you've already collected, as well as information about the appointment that they've scheduled. We have the links to add it to a calendar. But as I mentioned, this is really the unique part of appointment calendar, another unique part of appointment calendar, which is the ability to reschedule. So I booked this appointment for tomorrow, but actually it turns out I can't make this appointment. Let's go ahead and open this link and reschedule it. Again, I'm just going to open this in my incognito window. Your constituents would not need to do that. And here I am back to, the regular calendar page, it looks. So I'm going to just quickly select another appointment. I can't make the 21st, but maybe the 23rd at, let's see, maybe the 23rd at 8 a.m. And now we see that second section on the registration form that I mentioned, the old appointment information. So this is a really helpful part of having those two sections on your registration form when folks go to reschedule and they can see what was their original appointment information and what is their new appointment information. So, here I can see, yep, I've scheduled another 30-minute session and I could confirm maybe, I realized I wanted to get a very specific topic in, or I could realize, I've selected an appointment that isn't of the right topic. Again, that's where those filters can come in handy. As I scroll down, all of my personal information is already completed here. So all I would do is add additional questions if I had them. And again, if I had already submitted a form with questions, my original questions would be in this field as well, but they would be editable. So I could change them or I could add new questions for my rescheduled appointment. And then simply by clicking reschedule appointment, I will be sent another confirmation email, as well as any additional reminders that Debbie may have set up to make sure that I remember what time and date that new appointment is at. So that is really the full demo of both the back end and the front end of our appointment manager. We are very excited to offer this up as a new feature within Events Rx. So this is a new feature within the Events Rx product itself. And before I hand things back over to Mark Satin to wrap us up and go through any questions that we've had come up throughout the process, I just wanted to also jump over to our help site to point out something that Mark Farrell mentioned, which is within our Events Rx help site guide. We do already have an entire section dedicated to appointment manager. So if you start to implement this, or if you're interested in reviewing some of those steps, this is available to everyone, all of our clients right now. All right, so with that, I will go ahead and hand things over to Mark so that he can wrap them up.
Great. First, I just want to again thank Mark, Katie, Connor for doing such a great job of an in-depth review of Appointment Manager. As Connor mentioned, if you have any additional questions as you're reviewing the content on the RAD Navigator, please do not hesitate to reach out. There's a couple of just housekeeping items that I wanted to mention. One is you should be able to see a quick poll related to today's session. If you have a moment, please fill out the poll just so that we can get some feedback as we continue to conduct and host our summer school sessions. As it relates to a couple of questions, there were a couple of questions in the Q&A window. There was a couple of questions in the chat. So just to review a couple of things. One, Appointment Manager is a module within Events Rx. It is available for installation configuration in a sandbox environment today. It's also available in production. Should you be interested in production, Events Rx is the product where Appointment Manager lives, and the Appointment Manager is a feature. So we would just need to work with you to identify how many users you would have so that we can provide you a licensing agreement for Appointment Manager. Prior to doing that, we really encourage clients to kind of set it up, test it, use it in a sandbox environment so that you're comfortable with it. Any one of our clients that already has Events Rx, it's available to you. So feel free to play around with it, test it, use it, ask us questions about it, and we'd be more than happy to assist. A couple other questions. Currently, DXP. Some of you have asked the question about, well, I don't have DXP today. Is that free for me? Is that available for installation? And the answer is yes. We've made DXP kind of a bolt-on solution. If you're using Form Builder today and you license Form Builder, you have DXP available to you. So to the extent that you have a licensing agreement for Form Builder and you have a licensing agreement for events, you can always utilize DXP to expand its functionality. DXP is really just a kind of a UI tool. So it's an extension of Form Builder to some degree. It's what's enabling us to make Form Builder everywhere. Earlier, I think last week, there was a session on utilizing Form Builder within a digital experience, a Lightning community. We've also been leveraging DXP within Reader Rx to support Form Builder and having Form Builder available for review steps and feedback forms. So by all means, feel free to, again, on the RAD Navigator, install and begin to leverage DXP as well. Another question that came up was color coding. So that's a good question. I don't think we've thought about on the back end changing colors for different staff or as part of the front end experience. The one thing I will mention on the front end experience is that you can actually have URLs that are unique to staff. So if I was a admission counselor or a faculty member or a student services representative, I can have my own booking URL by essentially passing parameters in the URL. So to the extent we're kind of showing kind of the full screen of all of the available options, and then a filter was added, that filter can be predefined as well. So, that's one thing to consider. But I think the question about color coding, is something that we can certainly look into. So overall, again, we appreciate everyone's time today. I do have one additional housekeeping item, which is announcing the winner of the raffle from last session. That is a Amazon gift card, $25, and that is for Boris at National Louis University. So if anyone from NLU is on the call, if you can let Boris know, or if Boris is on, congratulations. And of course, the next session, there'll be an announced winner of the raffle as well. Today's session is recorded. It will be posted on the RAD Navigator probably before the end of the day, if not sooner. And should you have any questions whatsoever related to the tool, if you'd like us to kind of walk through the solution on a more personal level, feel free to submit a support ticket, reach out to anyone on the implementation team, reach out to myself or Misty. We would be more than happy to assist. And again, Mark, Katie, Connor, fantastic job. Thank you so much for walking us through Appointment Manager today as part of our session, the rise of Appointment Manager. I feel like I have to do that in kind of a sithy voice, but the rise of Appointment Manager. We appreciate everyone's time today, and we hope you have a good rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow as part of our Rookie to Wookie session with Ohio University. Thanks, everybody.